8% in October 2022. Going forward, supportive monetary and fiscal policies as well as coordinated interventions will be maintained to sustain the current inflation deceleration path. In this regard, government is setting a month-on-month inflation target of between 1% and 3% and a fiscal budget deficit target of no more than 1.5% of GDP in 2023. I now turn to the external sector. Mr. Speaker said the country's balance of payments position remains strong, with the current account continuing to be in positive territory. To year end, the current account is projected at $448.9 million US dollars, compared to $348.2 million US dollars registered in 2021. In 2023, the country's external sector is also expected to remain relatively strong, with a positive current account sustained by strong secondary income inflows, mainly in the form of diaspora remittances, coupled with merchandise exports growing faster than imports. I turn to the financial sector. Mr. Speaker said, the banking sector has demonstrated resilience as reflected by satisfactory financial soundness indicators, bolstered by complementary fiscal and monetary policy interventions meant to ensure financial sector stability. Let me turn to the budget performance and outlook. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me give a brief narrative of the performance of the public finances during the first 9 months of the year. Cumulative revenue collections to September 2022 amounted to 1.2 trillion Zimbabwe dollars against a target of 890.5 billion Zimbabwe dollars, thus giving us a positive variance of 269.9 billion Zimbabwe dollars. Tax and non-tax revenue collections amounted to 1.1 trillion and 71.7 billion respectively. Revenue collections to year end remain on course to meet the revised target of 1.7 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. Cumulative expenditures to September 2022 stood at 1.19 trillion against a target of 1.02 trillion, representing an expenditure overrun of 173.9 billion Zimbabwe dollars. To year end, total expenditures are expected to reach 1.9 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. A word about public debt, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, the country's total public and publicly guaranteed debt is estimated at 2.2 trillion Zimbabwe dollars for domestic debt, the bulk of which is the debt owed to the former farmers whom were compensating for improvements on the land. And there's 14 billion US dollars for external debt. This is at the end, or as of the end of September 2022. A word about development partner support. Mr. Speaker said, during the first 9 months of 2022, the country received development assistance amounting to 641.9 million US dollars, of which 405.7 million US dollars was from bilateral partners and 236.3 million US dollars is from multilateral partners. This was to support various programs and projects. In 2023, development partners are projected to disburse 352.8 million US dollars, mainly targeting social sectors and governance issues. I now turn to the 2023 macro budget framework. Mr. Speaker, sir, in line with the projected real GDP growth rate of 3.8% for 2023 and a nominal GDP level of 21.8 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, total revenue collections are projected at 3.9 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, which is 18% of our gross domestic product, whilst expenditures are set at 4.2 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, or 19.5% of GDP. This is in 2023. That's the prognosis. the overall deficit of 336.9 billion Zimbabwe dollars, or 1.5% of GDP, is projected in 2023, and loan repayments amounting to 248.6 billion, resulting in total financing requirement of 585.5 billion Zimbabwe dollars during 2023. How are we going to finance this gap of 585.5 billion? We will issue bonds on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, VFEX. We're also going to source some external loans to support certain programs and projects. We'll also issue treasury bills in the domestic market. And finally, we'll make further drawdowns on SGR's resources. Let me turn to the 2023 budget priority areas. Mr. Speaker, sir, in line with the NDS 1, the 2023 national budget priorities are as follows. Let me start with economic growth and stability. That's the first one. Macroeconomic stability, complemented by supply-side interventions, is expected to go a long way in ensuring a conducive macroeconomic environment that supports robust economic growth, reduce poverty levels across regions and communities, thus leaving no one and no place behind. Strong collaboration and complementarity between fiscal and monetary policy measures seek to entrench macroeconomic stability, with additional measures being proposed under this budget to keep market liquidity in check and accelerate the disinflation path, with the broad objective of achieving single-digit inflation and a stable exchange rate. Let me turn to the public procurement system. A word about that. Mr. Speaker, sir, government has taken a firm position to ensure that in all public procurement contracts, value for money is realized. Currently, a due diligence exercise is underway to ensure all procurement of goods and services by government procurements are not overpriced, and public funds are effectively and efficiently utilized. We know that it has slowed down a few programs and projects, but we will catch up. The process is going well. Mr. Speaker, sir, in line with NDS 1, the 2023 national budget also seeks to support the development and strengthening of existing value chains, promoting SME linkages with large corporates, and identification of quick-win value chains in the areas of agriculture, manufacturing, and mining. And just taking a deep dive into agriculture, the transformation of the agricultural sector, anchored on innovative technologies and good agronomics, is underway through various programs and projects aimed at promoting production, higher levels of production, and higher levels of productivity. For the 2022-2023 summer farming season, government is providing agricultural inputs to vulnerable households under the Agriculture Productive Scheme from Vudza Intwasa program, which is targeting 845,000 hectares under cereal and oilseeds. This is at a cost of 77 billion Zimbabwe dollars. For the National Enhanced Agriculture Productivity Scheme, government has issued $154.6 million equivalent local currency guarantee to AFC Bank to raise resources to finance maize, soybeans, sunflower, and traditional grains. In addition, the AFC Bank has been capacitated with tractors and implements which are being leased to farmers on a cost recovery basis, as well as 10,000 hectares of land which can be used to leverage funding for the sector. Mr. Speaker, government is also capacitating CPZ Agro Yield in a similar way to finance the 2022-2023 summer cropping season. I now turn to manufacturing. Since 2019, there's been a turnaround in the manufacturing sector, with capacity utilization steadily increasing to current levels of about 66%, while domestic products now occupy 80% of the shelves in our supermarkets. Mr. Speaker, the sector is expected to continue benefiting from the SGR revolving fund of $30 million to support retooling and capacitation of the industry. The 2023 national budget therefore seeks to accelerate the structural transformation of the sector with a view to expand value addition capacity and diversify the product range. A word about the IDC, Mr. Speaker, sir. Government is capacitating the IDC to value-add raw materials into compound fertilizers and other products currently being imported as part of the local content strategy. Already, one of the subsidiaries, Complex Corporation, was capacitated with a new plant to enable production of grain protectants to reduce post-harvest losses and tigris, which should result in decreased cattle deaths from the January disease. Let me turn to another objective of the budget, which is optimizing on the value of our natural resources. Mr. Speaker said, value addition opportunities arising from the abundance of natural resources and discovery of strategic minerals like lithium presents an opportunity for economic transformation and inclusive growth. Mr. Speaker said the mining sector is expected to grow by 10.4% in 2023, underpinned by anticipated favorable international mineral prices, as well as an increase in investment, especially in exploration, mine development, and mechanization. The 2023 budget will support improvement in the mining environment by strengthening the legal framework, promote mining activities and value addition in an environmentally sustainable manner. I now turn to tourism, which is also part of the agenda for optimizing value on our natural resources. Mr. Speaker said, during the first half of 2022, the country registered a 115% rise in tourist arrivals to 353,000 compared to the same period in 2021. Domestic visits into the national parks rose by 90%, from about 91,000 in 2021 to 172,000 during the period January to May 2022. As a result, the tourist receipts increased by 121% in 2022 to $337.5 million compared to the same period last year. The tourism industry is expected to continue to grow in the outlook, benefiting from recovery in international tourism, coming in of new players in the aviation sector, and meetings, conferences, exhibitions. Therefore, tourist arrivals are expected to increase to at least 1.5 million in 2023, while these tourism receipts are projected at $623 million US dollars. I now turn to yet another pillar or priority of the 2023 budget, that of infrastructure, ICT, and the digital economy. Mr. Speaker said, the ongoing public and private sector infrastructure investments in sectors such as energy, housing, transport, water and sanitation, as well as ICT, are promoting economic transformation by lowering the cost of doing business and improving service delivery. The overall support towards the 2023 development budget, including the intergovernmental fiscal transfers, or devolution funds for short, amounts to 1.1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, with details of the specific projects contained in the 2023 infrastructure investment plan, which I will table at the end of the presentation. I now turn to the transport sector within the infrastructure, broad infrastructure priority area. Mr. Speaker said, overall support towards the transport sector during the 2023 budget amounts to 194.8 billion Zimbabwe dollars, of which 177.4 billion Zimbabwe dollars is earmarked for the road sector, and 13.4 billion Zimbabwe dollars and 4 billion Zimbabwe dollars being channeled towards rehabilitation and upgrading of airports and railway systems, respectively. I now turn to housing delivery. Mr. Speaker said, in line with the Zimbabwe National Human Settlement Policy, government targets to construct 450,000 new housing units by 2025, from both the public and private sectors. This entails densification of settlements, creation of smart cities, adoption of cost-effective and affordable housing units, as well as use of alternative building technologies designs that are resilient to climate change shocks. The 2023 budget has set aside 49.9 billion Zimbabwe dollars towards completion of ongoing housing projects, as well as addressing infrastructure bottlenecks within the informal settlements. Let me turn to the energy sector within the broader infrastructure priority area. Mr. Speaker said, electricity generation faces a number of challenges, including obsolete equipment and infrastructure, also the need to attract significant private sector investment in the sector, and other financing instruments, as well as other structural bottlenecks, all of which have impacted on electricity supply, leading to load shedding. The 2023 budget will therefore prioritize timeless completion of the Wange 7 and 8 expansion project, which is now at 95% completion, which will bring an additional 600 megawatts to the national grid. Now, looking at the water and sanitation area, Mr. Speaker said, water is a critical enabler and a basic human right. Hence, the thrust of government to scale up implementation of water and sanitation programs and projects, targeting dam construction, conveyancing infrastructure, and borehole rehabilitation and drilling. And this is guided by the integrated approach to water development. Specifically, the 2023 budget has a provision of 30.4 billion Zimbabwe dollars towards the sector. I now turn to yet another priority area of the budget, which is the area of youth, sport, arts, and culture. A word about that. Mr. Speaker said, the 2023 budget will support the expansion and capacitation of vocational training centers, as well as capitalization of the youth empowerment institutions that provide an opportunity for youth to engage in productive economic activities and transform their lives and livelihoods. A word about women, gender equity, and SMEs. The government's empowerment initiatives are meant to ensure equal opportunities for all, irrespective of gender. In line with the NDS 1 thrust, the 2023 budget will therefore support empowerment institutions such as the Women's Development Fund, the Community Development Fund, Zimbabwe Women's Microfinance Bank, Empower Bank, and the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Corporation, SMEDCO. Let me turn to the area of another priority area, which is human capital development and well-being. Mr. Speaker said, a strong human capital base is critical for driving the economic transformation agenda and achievement of Vision 2030. Within that, health is very important. In this regard, the 2023 national budget will target the provision of quality health services, as evidenced by the ongoing construction and rehabilitation of health facilities. Some of these facilities include the Lupane Provincial Hospital, the health post in Mutasa and Mushayamvura, four in Gokwenorth, four centers in Gokwenorth, health centers, and 3 centers in the Centenary District, 30 polyclinics, and 5 district hospitals which are being constructed under the NMS project. This is among other activities within the sector. The 2023 national budget has set aside just above 11% of total expenditures towards the support of the health sector. Let me turn to the education sector, which is a subsector of the human capital development and well-being priority area. Mr. Speaker said, in line with the Constitution, every child has a right to basic education. In pursuit of the policy of free basic education, the budget will direct resources towards increased free education coverage, which His Excellency has already announced. In line with the commitments and the need to ensure a knowledge-driven economy, an amount of 777 billion Zimbabwe dollars is being allocated to both primary and secondary, as well as higher and tertiary education sectors. Research and innovation will be supported. including the development of a second space satellite. Another priority area for the budget, Mr. Speaker, is that of providing social protection to our citizenry. Mr. Speaker, through the national budget, government will continue to provide social protection services through its mainstream programs, namely harmonized social cash transfers, the food deficit mitigation program, basic education and health assistance, child protection services, support for the elderly and persons with disabilities, and this will be done with a total of 50.4 billion Zimbabwe dollars, which has been set aside for all these social protection activities. Yet another priority area in the budget, 2023 budget, is that of effective institution building and governance support. Mr. Speaker, the 2023 budget will continue to strengthen public institutions to enhance public service delivery, justice delivery, and uphold national unity, peace and reconciliation as building blocks for achieving equitable and sustainable national development. In 2023, Mr. Speaker, we're going to be conducting harmonized elections. So the nation is going to hold harmonized elections in 2023 as enshrined in the Constitution. Preparations for the plebiscite have already commenced, which included the delimitation exercise, voter registration, and voters' roll inspection. The 2023 national budget is setting aside 76 billion Zimbabwe dollars for the remaining activities covering voter registration, voter inspection, and actual election conduct, among other activities, of course. The area of peace and security is very critical as we seek to build effective institutions. The 2023 national budget has set aside resources towards the capacitation of our uniformed forces with accommodation provision, rations provision, critical equipment provision, as well as improvement in remuneration, both monetary and non-monetary type of remuneration. This is in order to fight crime, to maintain law and order, as well as to keep general peace and security situation in check. The war veterans are not forgotten, Mr. Speaker. Similarly, the welfare of veterans of liberation struggle remains a priority, with the 2023 budget setting aside 46 billion Zimbabwe dollars towards their monetary and non-monetary benefits, as well as capitalization of their companies in the areas of mining, tourism, agriculture, among other sectors. Let me turn now to the devolution priority area, which is also well explained in the budget. Mr. Speaker, the year 2023 marks the fourth year since the central government started allocating at least 5% of the revenue collections as intergovernmental fiscal transfers to lower tiers of government. And this is enshrined in the Constitution, of course. The 2023 national budget is ring-fencing 195.5 billion Zimbabwe dollars, being 5% of the anticipated revenue resources towards the lower tiers of government in support of construction, upgrading and rehabilitation of facilities in the health sector, in the transportation sector, and education, water and sanitation, as well as procurement of plant and equipment within the local authorities. I now turn to the last area in terms of priority areas for this budget, that of information, image building, and engagement and re-engagement. Mr. Speaker, information and communication play a pivotal role in presenting government policy and portraying the image of the country both to the foreign and domestic audiences, especially under the NDS one pillar of image building, international engagement and re-engagement. In the 2023 budget, an amount of 8.6 billion has been set aside to support information, publicity, and broadcasting services. This completes the list of the key priority areas for the budget, 2023 national budget, Mr. Speaker. I now turn to the actual vote allocations for each ministry that will support these pillars or priority areas. Mr. Speaker,